Starting off, we have a ton of budget modern controllers. The first one I'm going to go with is the Cracked Atom controller. These things are so awesome. They're really small and fit nicely in your pocket on a keychain or however you want to carry them around. But these things are perfect for the Switch or anything else that's Bluetooth. These are pretty cheap, and then you just basically Bluetooth them to whatever you want to use, and you're off to playing. And the same thing could be said about the 8BitDo Lite gamepad controller. As you can tell, this thing looks very similar to the Switch Lite, and this thing also works on Bluetooth, whether it's to the Switch, a Windows machine, basically anything that uses Bluetooth, you can use this controller with it as well. And I think the GameSir Khalid controller for the Xbox is one you have to have. This is wired, however, it comes with a month of Ultimate Game Pass if you've never used Game Pass before. And this controller feels really, really good. For a budget controller, it really surprised me. The buttons are nice and clicky. The joysticks feel nice. This thing lights up when you plug it in. It's one of those that shocked me at how cheap it was. And another controller that really shocked me was the Cracked Neo S controller. This controller looks kind of weird and wacky, but it feels really nice in your hand when you actually get to use it, and it's relatively cheap, and the way that this is constructed feels really good, and playing this with basically your Switch or anything else that's Bluetooth feels really nice. Then I've got to talk about the Hori Split Pad Compact controllers. I can't find the box for this, but these things are so awesome. You just slide them onto your Switch like Joy-Cons, and then you're ready to go. The joysticks feel really nice. They feel nice and comfortable in your hand because it is a little thicker. The buttons, the triggers, everything on this feels really good. So I think this is a great starting point if you want to kind of beef up your Switch with controllers, but there's more on this list, so make sure you stick around to find those out. And last but not least, for the budget controllers, we've got the GameSir Nova Lite, and this thing is really pretty cheap, but definitely well worth it. This works with the wireless adapter or with Bluetooth, which is pretty cool, and it comes with a case, which is awesome as well. There's a little dongle inside if you need to use that, but this controller feels really similar to that GameSir Khalid controller, but gives you the aspect and portability of being wireless. So I think this is a little bit better than the Khalid controller, but not by much. Which now brings us to the more premium controllers. Now, I'm starting this off with the Mantis PlayStation 4 controller. Now, I know this is could have been in the retro section, but this is a really comfortable controller, and I think it works really well. It works with the PlayStation, it works with the PC. I figured out how to work it with my Switch with 8BitDo Adapter 2. So I think this is a pretty good controller and it's really high quality. So I had to include it here in the premium section. Next, we've got to talk about the 8BitDo SN30 Pro controller. Now, technically, this could also be in the retro section, but it's wireless and it works with Bluetooth for the Switch, Windows, Steam, macOS, anything that works with Bluetooth. So I'm saying this is a modern controller, even though it's like a modern take on a retro controller. This thing feels amazing in your hand. If you've ever used a Super Nintendo controller, you know what you're getting here. This is high quality and definitely worth the money. So I think if you are playing a bunch of retro games on your Switch or on your computer or phone or something like that, this is perfect for that. Which then brings me to the Doyokoi GameCube Joy-Con controller for the Switch. This is absolutely crazy. It either comes like this, which is obviously a GameCube controller, or if you take it off the middle piece and slide it on your Switch, you've got a GameCube in your hand, and it's definitely an awesome way to play the Switch. And the buttons, everything feels just like the GameCube controller. And this thing just looks wild as well. So if you're looking for a GameCube controller, this one doubles as Joy-Cons as well. Sticking with controllers for the Switch, we've got the 8BitDo Ultimate controller. This thing is insane. I know everyone says that the Switch Pro controller is like one of the best Pro controllers, but honestly, this Ultimate controller for me feels just as good as that Nintendo branded controller. and it feels amazing. It's got Hall effect joysticks in it to keep it from drifting. The buttons, the triggers, the D-pad, everything about this controller is amazing. This is probably the best controller in my collection, and being a third party just is crazy, but 8BitDo did it right with this one. Last but not least, for the premium modern controllers, we've got the Nitro Deck from Cracked for the Nintendo Switch. This thing is just absolutely insane. I've got two different ones here. I've got the original and then the Nitro Deck Plus, which is pretty awesome and has a few extra features. But this thing is so easy to use. You just grab your Switch, grab the Nitro Deck, and then you have a controller on your Switch that's very stable. It feels really good. There's extra buttons on the back. It just is one of those things that takes the Switch to the next level, and I definitely think this being the GameCube themed one is totally awesome and well worth picking up. Before we get to the retro controllers, I want to talk about a few protective cases or carrying bags that are definitely well worth it. Starting off with the Hori Silicon Translucent Switch Lite case. This actually just goes on your Switch Lite, makes it a little bit more comfortable in your hand, and honestly, this does a lot to protect your Switch Lite, other than the screen, of course, but this is one that I've had since the first day I got a Switch Lite, and it is so amazing. But then it's time to talk about carrying bags. First off, this is the carrying bag from Cracked, which is big enough to put a Steam Deck or a Nitro Deck in it, which is totally perfect. This has a magnetic clasp on the inside and a few little sections to put cords or games. And this is a really nice simplistic bag that will keep your Switch protected. But to be completely transparent with you, the bag that I use the most is the TomTuck carrying bag. This thing is really nice quality, and it has a ton of special features. On the front is a little zipper there. Then when you open up the big zipper, there's a place for your Switch, a place for games, a place for cords. This is where it's at. But they also have the Steam Deck one, which is a little bit larger. As you can tell here, it's a few inches longer there. And I basically keep my Steam Deck in it all the time when I'm not using it. It's got a hard plastic protector in there for my Steam Deck. I keep my cords in it. These things are definitely well worth picking up. They keep your Switch or your Steam Deck protected, and it's just a really nice way to keep all your games that you're regularly playing all in one place with your cords, the console, and any other accessories you need with it. Now let's go ahead and talk about some mobile controllers that attach to your phone and work really, really good. Starting off, I've got the GameSir G8 and the GameSir G8 Plus. Now, the GameSir G8 just hooks up via USB-C, and honestly, you basically hook it on, stretch it across, and then you can get to playing. Honestly, this is a really awesome look with that Super Nintendo feel. It feels really nice in your hand, not too flimsy or cheap, but at the same time, it feels weighted enough that this is legit. But also, if you go ahead and want to move up to the G8 Plus, this actually hooks up via Wi-Fi, so you don't even have to plug anything in. You just plop it in, hook it up, and then get to playing. Absolutely awesome. The sticks feel great on this. The buttons are great. I absolutely love that. But if you're going to go a little more higher end, I'm thinking the Backbone is the way to go. This thing is really nice, compact, and really fits perfect. It does work with either the USB one works for newer iPhones or Android, or this one works via Lightning. You just plop it in there and get to playing. It's nice and compact and small. I think the buttons and the D-pad feel pretty good on this. I think this is one that is a good one to go with, but if you really want to spend the money, I think you've got to go with the Razer Edge. This is absolutely crazy because this actually comes with its own Android handheld device, which is pretty cool. It pops on just like that. It's like a little tablet. I believe this is like 7 or 8 inches. And then you, again, USB-C here, you just hook it in, plop it on, and this feels like one of the better, like, solid pieces. The sticks feel amazing. The buttons feel great. I think the buttons are nice and clicky. if you want to spend the real money, this is the way to go, because this thing runs really well, plays pretty much anything you can throw at it. I believe it works with a bunch of the systems as well, like Xbox Game Pass and stuff like that already comes preloaded. So it's definitely one, if you're into mobile gaming, it's definitely one you gotta check out. Now it's time to talk about retro controllers. And the funny thing is, all of these controllers we're talking about are all from Retro Fighters. These are absolutely phenomenal retro controllers turned into like a modern take on them, and I think it's definitely the way to go about this. Starting off, we've got the Nintendo 64 Retro Fighters Brawler 64. This is one of the first controllers they created, if not the first. This one right here works with the Nintendo 64, but they also have ones that are wireless that work with the Nintendo 64 or the Switch. I have a few of those, but I love this Extreme Green. It's just one that I always have to talk about. Then for the Xbox original, we've got the Hunter controller. This works with the Xbox, the Switch, PC, pretty much anything with either a Bluetooth or a dongle connection. And this thing just looks absolutely awesome. This transparent green reminds me of that Halo Xbox original console. It just looks amazing, and this controller really does feel great in your hand. Probably the only Xbox controller I use anymore, to be honest. That then leads me to the Sega Dreamcast, which is the Striker DC controller. This is the transparent blue one. If you didn't notice, I like the transparent colors, and this one is really cool. It takes that weird and funky controller from the Dreamcast, turns it into a modern controller that just feels much better in your hand, and honestly, if I'm ever playing the Dreamcast, it's with this controller. Then we've got the Defender controller from Retro Fighters. It works with the PS1, 2, and 3, and probably the 4 and 5 if you use the dongle. I haven't tried it, maybe I should, but this controller is perfect. It's nice, compact, it's pretty small, the buttons feel really nice. Everything about this controller is awesome. I feel like if you're going to use either a PS1, 2, or 3 controller, this is the one to use because you can use one controller and use it on all those systems. It's just perfect for that. Last but not least, and the newest one of my collection, is the Retro Fighters Battler GC for GameCube, Switch, Wii, PC, and this is the Pro Series, which comes with a little bit extra stuff. This works wirelessly or with that dongle or via Bluetooth, but honestly, this is a really, really comfortable controller that is in pseudo the shape of the GameCube controller. The buttons are really clicky. The joysticks feel like a Nintendo GameCube controller. And this is just one of those that anytime I feel like playing GameCube games, it's either this or the Doyokoi. Let's be real here. So there you go. That was a ton of different controllers and accessories that I think you will definitely enjoy, whether you're on a budget or you're balling out. Either one, I think there's something on this list for you. Now, I know I didn't really talk about the Xbox very much or the PS5, but honestly, I just use stock controllers for those. So if you need to, I can put those links down below if you're interested. But honestly, I just use the basic controllers because they're so awesome. But all the rest of these controllers are just so perfect. There are just a bunch of amazing third-party controller companies that really just care about what they put together. Whether it's 8BitDo, Cracked, we've got Retro Fighters. There's a few more sprinkled in, like those GameSir controllers. Honestly, I think everything on here, if I wasn't given it, I would probably pick up and test. Half of these I bought myself to test. So like, I want to say that I feel like these are some controllers that if you're a retro gamer or a modern gamer, there's probably a controller for you. So check them out. Down below there's links to everything if you're interested. But I'm going to get out of here because it's almost Christmas time. So check out that video out if you haven't already. But honestly, either the Brawler 64 controller or the Hunter controller for the retro controllers, probably my favorite. This thing goes super hard. It looks amazing. It feels amazing. Absolutely just one of those controllers. If you pick it up, you won't ever want to put it down. But I'm getting out of here, so check out that video out if you haven't already.